Tehran streets are boiling. Massive crowds have poured into the streets, but these are not dissidents opposing the regime. These are the regime's own supporters. And their anger is not aimed outward, it's aimed inward. Because the people running around did something unforgivable in their eyes. They surrendered. At least that's what millions of regime supporters believe. And a regime that said, "We will never back down," for 47 years just backed down, with a single tweet. Politicians are turning their backs on each other. The military is branding negotiators as traitors. The mullahs are worried the Revolutionary Guards have seized the state, and the emerging information goes beyond what was feared. Iran is no longer run by an elected government, but by a three-person committee of IRGC origin. April 17th, Iran's Foreign Minister Araghchi posted on X. All commercial vessels' passage through the Strait of Hormuz has been fully restored, and Iran exploded from the inside. The Strait of Hormuz was Iran's last card. As long as the strait stayed closed, oil prices rose. Rising prices put pressure on Trump, and that pressure gave Iran room at the table. And Araghchi burned that card with a single tweet, with no deal, no guarantee behind it. Trump's response made things worse. CENTCOM said, "The blockade continues. It doesn't matter what Iran does." That same day, Trump announced, "We've secured an agreement that they won't continue enrichment." Whether that sentence was even true no longer mattered. What mattered was that multiple regime figures saw it as either fake or betrayal and went into shock. So Iran gave its card and received nothing in return. The blockade continues. The economy is collapsing. No peace deal exists. And for millions of regime supporters, this scene had only one name: surrender. From that moment on, Iran fell into a three-way civil war. Now let's see this from the inside, because all three fronts are against each other. On the first front, the IRGC is against the government. The Revolutionary Guards had been questioning the diplomatic wing from the start. IRGC-linked media accused Araghchi of treachery and lack of trust, branding him a JCPOA diplomat, meaning the architect of the 2015 Obama deal. A hardline commentator on state television openly said Araghchi had shown flexibility in negotiations on reducing financial and military support to Hezbollah. And since that tweet, he has neither spoken nor been seen. On the second front, mullahs and parliamentarians are against the leadership. MP Morteza Mahmoudi openly said, if not for wartime conditions, he would have been forced to resign. He accused him of making untimely statements that repeatedly calmed global oil markets during sensitive periods. The hardline wing in parliament went even further, declaring that the IRGC's 10 negotiation demands were non-negotiable, and that Hezbollah and the Houthis would never be abandoned. But the mullah's anger isn't just aimed at diplomats, it's also aimed at the IRGC itself. Because as the Revolutionary Guards effectively seize control of the state, the clerics are losing their historical reason for existence. If an IRGC origin committee can run the country without mullahs, the theo in theocracy becomes a facade, and the mullahs are neither in power nor able to oppose, completely stuck in between. Former Culture Minister Ayatollah Muzani read the situation from another angle. If the Supreme National Security Council doesn't speak up at sensitive moments, we will suffer great damage in the psychological war. The regime's own former minister was openly saying Iran was losing not just the military war, but the propaganda war too. On the third front, the streets, and they are against everyone. And this is the most dangerous one. Because the people on the streets are not the regime's enemies. They are the regime's own base. For years they believed the slogan, "We will never back down." They sent their sons to the front. They endured sanctions. They accepted all of it as the price of standing against the great Satan. And now they see a retreat by the very people who never paid that price. And there is a fourth layer feeding this three-front war. The root of the streets' rage is not just surrender. For 6 weeks, the US blockade has been tearing apart Iran's daily life. Power cuts in Tehran last up to 12 hours a day. Fuel queues stretch for kilometers. Food prices have risen over 40%. Medicine shortages are hitting hospitals. Cancer treatments have stopped. Chronic patients have no medication. ATMs are empty. Small shopkeepers are closing down. There are families who can't send their children to school. No fuel for transport. President Pezeshkian reportedly told IRGC commanders, if there's no ceasefire, the economy will completely collapse within 3 to 4 weeks. And ordinary Iranians are asking, why are we paying this price? For years, the regime said, resistance economy. We'll be self-sufficient, we don't need the West. But the blockade exposed that resistance economy as a fairy tale. It worked as a slogan, but in the ordinary person's kitchen, pharmacy, and gas tank, that slogan had no substance left. In Iran's 2026 to 2027 budget, the share of oil revenue dropped from 32% to 5%, the lowest level since the 1960s. To compensate, taxes were raised over 60%. The state systematically reduced foreign currency obligations and shifted to rial-based direct subsidies, what economists call inflationary financing. The state is stealing from its own people's pockets. The April 2026 surrender shock was not a beginning. It was the final blow landing on the regime's weakest moment. The roots of this rage go much deeper. The last week of December 2025, the Iranian rial hit a record low against the dollar. $1 reached 1.5 million rials. This was Iran's largest uprising since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, spreading to more than 200 cities, reaching all 31 provinces. Millions were on the streets. And this time the slogans were different. They were shouting, "Death to the dictator," directly targeting Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. The regime responded with gunfire. On January 8th to 9th, security forces opened fire, killing thousands. And beneath these protests lies a structural collapse that has been building for years. According to the Atlantic Council's analysis, Iran is approaching what its own meteorological authorities call water day zero, the point where water systems simply stop functioning. Cracks in historic mosques in Isfahan, land subsidence in Tehran at 30 centimeters per year, a world record. In southwestern provinces, people can no longer get water from taps. They survive on tankers. According to Euronews, power cuts are no longer confined to summer. 12 hours of darkness in the middle of winter. Factories are shutting down. Production is stopping. A new wave of unemployment is beginning. And according to protesters, claiming these are technical problems is a lie. Because for decades, the regime diverted resources to Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the nuclear program, instead of investing in water and energy infrastructure. And something else emerged in the January uprising, the Shah Pahlavi factor. According to the House of Commons report, voices among the protesters demanding the restoration of the monarchy and Reza Pahlavi rose. This is a demand that shakes the very foundation of the 1979 revolution, because the regime's reason for existence was built on overthrowing the Shah. 47 years later, if people are saying, we want back what was overthrown, the regime's legitimacy foundation has collapsed. Now, April's surrender claim landed on top of all this accumulated rage. The person on the street doesn't have a one-dimensional problem. First their water was cut, then their electricity went, then their money melted, and now they saw that everything they believed was a lie. The regime said, we will endure sanctions. It couldn't. It said, we will be self-sufficient. It wasn't. It said, we will never surrender. It surrendered. This double blow, both hungry and deceived, is severing the 47-year bond of regime supporters. They're still waving the flags, but they're now questioning what's behind them. And there is a fourth layer paralyzing this three-front war. Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei was selected over a month ago. But for 35 days, there has been no image, no voice. He is reported to be injured. A few written statements were published, but someone else is reading them. And in this vacuum, Iran is no longer run by an elected government, but by a three-person committee of Revolutionary Guards origin. Vahidi, IRGC Supreme Commander, and the country's de facto leader. As former Iranian MP Ali Akbar Mousavi Hoeini told NBC News, the person running the country is Vahidi. Ghalibaf doesn't have the power to stand against him. Zolgada, the National Security Council secretary that Vahidi's pressure forced President Pezeshkian to appoint, and Mohsen Rezai, one of the IRGC's founding commanders, who led the organization for 16 years, now Mojtaba Khamenei's military advisor. All three are IRGC origin. None was elected, none is a cleric. All three were raised in an era where not negotiating was natural. The 1980s Iran-Iraq War, the 1990s Hezbollah construction, the 2000s nuclear crisis. Rezai had written to Khomeini in 1988 that the UN resolution should not be accepted. Khomeini overruled him and accepted it, describing it as drinking the poison chalice. But in 2026, there is no supreme leader to make Vahidi drink the poison chalice. President Pezeshkian has been neutralized. He can't even choose his own cabinet. Vahidi is blocking minister appointments. In March, Pezeshkian apologized to Gulf states, and the IRGC contradicted him within hours. The clearest evidence of the civilian-military power imbalance. According to Foreign Policy's analysis, this indicates Iran has entered a post-clerical era. The security establishment is no longer mediating politics, it's governing directly. The Islam part of the Islamic Republic has become a facade, and when you remove religion from a theocracy, what remains is a military dictatorship. This was the mullahs' most feared scenario, because if an IRGC origin committee can govern the country without clerics, the mullahs are neither in power nor able to oppose, completely stuck in between. In 1989, when Khomeini died, a functioning civilian religious command structure was established within hours. Rafsanjani and new Supreme Leader Khamenei managed the transition. But in 2026, that structure does not exist. In its place sit three people nobody elected, whose legitimacy comes solely from the barrel of a gun. And this tableau is unsettling not just Iran's enemies, but its allies too. China buys oil from Iran. But how do you negotiate with a regime when you don't know who's making the decisions? Russia sold Shahed drones, but can no longer predict who will make the payment. And when the US sits at the table, it's not even sure who's sitting across from it. And the darkest face of the coin. The regime keeps saying, the people support us. 22nd Bahman, February 11th. Revolution anniversary rallies were organized. But according to Wikipedia's documentation, the regime delivered an open threat to the families of protesters detained during the January uprising. Attend the rally, or your relatives' sentences will be increased. This is the clearest evidence of how the regime fills its support rallies. Some of those waving flags are there not because they believe, but to save their loved ones. And the regime used another weapon to hide the massacre's reality. According to the same sources, it distributed AI-generated fake images, claiming that videos from protesters were fake and AI-produced. Khamenei's close ally, Mashhad Friday prayer leader Alam al-Huda, said all the footage from the streets was AI-generated. When the regime couldn't hide the truth, it declared the truth itself to be fake. A year and a half ago, we saw the same thing in Damascus. Tens of thousands of pro-Assad supporters on the streets, flags, slogans, shows of force. And when Assad fled, everything evaporated overnight. In the Soviet Union, party congresses were full of applause, but most of those applauding no longer believed in the system. And in the Shah's final years, the army looked perfect at military parades, until the day it refused to fire. If a regime brings supporters to rallies through execution threats, if it uses artificial intelligence to deny massacre evidence, the only thing keeping that regime standing is fear. And fear only works when the one doing the frightening looks strong. Iran's regime does not look strong right now. From the outside, Iran is losing a war. But the real destruction is coming from within. A three-person military committee has effectively seized the state. The president can't even choose his own cabinet. The mullahs are watching a 47-year theocracy transform into a military dictatorship. Parliamentarians want the heads of their own diplomats. And the regime supporters on the streets are both hungry and deceived. In homes without electricity, hospitals without medicine, in front of empty ATMs, watching everything they believed crumble. Throughout history, regimes collapse not from the outside, but from within. The Soviet Union didn't collapse from missiles, it collapsed from its own bureaucrats' distrust. The Shah had the most modern army, but when that army refused to fire, everything ended. Assad wasn't destroyed by bombs. He was destroyed by his own generals quietly walking away. One of the key turning points that drove Iran into this state of surrender and civil war was the massive systemic collapse that occurred just a few weeks ago, at the end of March. The strength of the civil and military authority that sustains a state relies largely on the sense of security it can provide to its people and its own institutions. However, the darkness of March 29th has shattered the untouchable capital shield the regime has built over the years, sowing a seed of deep distrust among the elite and the command structure. Realizing there is no place left to hide in the darkness of the night, the IRGC command is experiencing a period of intense panic. This series of operations, extending beyond Tehran, is combined with the targeting of high-level leaders in critical cities like Isfahan, the hunting down of figures like Hassanzadeh, a key member of the Mohammad Rasulullah faction responsible for Tehran's internal security, in areas they believe to be safe, is triggering serious moral paranoia within the regime. Unable to determine the source of information leaks, the command structure is beginning to suspect its own units. Growing suspicions about who is collaborating with Mossad or coalition intelligence are reducing communication among commanders to a minimum. In this atmosphere where fear has replaced coordination, the reaction speed of the regular army and the guards is nearing a wiped-out state. Instead of uniting against a common enemy, a military structure plagued by internal conflicts and rumors of executions is entering a self-destructive process without the need for external intervention. Is Iran at that threshold now? A three-way civil war, a military junta filling the leadership vacuum, a collapsing economy, and its own base in revolt. Can a regime withstand all of these at once? Or will history repeat the same lesson once more? A regime rotting from within collapses with one final blow. And perhaps the most striking question is this. Trump could have fired a missile and united Iran. External threats close internal cracks. But instead he spoke one sentence and watched Iran divide itself. The cheapest weapon in the history of warfare, the enemy's internal insecurity. What do you think about this? Share in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay updated. Thank you for choosing us.